a 4-8M westbound between Junction 29 Castleton and Junction 29A St Mellons due to congestion. A road incident on Gloucestershire's M5 southbound entry slip at Junction 12 has led to lane closures. And on the trains, Chiltern Railways is facing disruptions between Aylesbury Vale Parkway and Amersham, while cross-country services are unavailable through Gloucester. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lee Purvis. Lee, I think last night there were probably 10 million armchair judges watching, but what was your verdict on what you saw?
I thought it was fantastic. I was slightly taken aback at how harsh the judges seemed to be, certainly for the first week of them at voting. I think Karen Carney's jive was fantastic, made me want to take up jiving. And I think Ross King got off really badly, actually. I felt quite sorry for him. I was quite surprised at how harshly marked he was. And having met him several times, obviously, in the showbiz scene and as a fellow journalist, you know, I knew how utterly nervous he was. And I think it's going to be a bumpy ride for all the contestants this year. The judges are really focusing on the footwork on the floor, and absolutely everyone needs to sort of up their game. But it's absolutely fabulous. You know, more than 100,000 sequins involved in the show that we saw last night, and it can only get bigger and better.
I think that that first programme is always the opportunity for people more to decide who is likely to get the chop rather than those that are going to make it through to the glitter ball. Because, I mean, you know, so many people are so close with their marking last night, and so many of them clearly show the opportunity of getting better as they go week after week. But it is usually quite easy to find, I think, who's going to be thrown out. What do you think?
Well, so I think Ross King, definitely, we'll see him probably go in literally a matter of weeks. I think Stephen Dennis, who played Paul Robinson for many years on our screens in Australian soap Neighbours, I don't think he's going to be in it for much longer either. Again, I felt quite sorry for him, and also having to dance to the theme tune of Neighbours was just pure genius.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GB News was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, it's led to a national inquiry.
GB News exists to make sure those concerns are put forward and people feel as though what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from anyone. We ask the questions our viewers and listeners want answering.
I know what's actually being discussed by my family and my friends. Us ordinary, hard-working British people have had enough. We've had enough.
They're fed up with the same old establishment nonsense. Everything that we do is opening up conversations that others are afraid to go at.
Why are you illegally bringing people into Britain?
That is our job. Our job is to get to the truth.
If it's important to you watching or listening at home, then it's important to us as well.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Good morning, it's 9:30 a.m. on Monday the 6th of October, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Alex Armstrong, and Miriam Gates.
Now, foreigners are set to be banned from claiming benefits under Tory plans to save £50 billion a year. But as the Conservatives continue to trail well behind Reform and Labour in the polls, will it be enough to win over voters?
Shadow Chancellor Sir Mel Stride told GB News Britain cannot keep spending money we simply do not have.
These things can be done, but they must be done, because this point about living within our means is absolutely critical. We are on a trajectory in our country of debt and deficit and interest on that debt that is totally unsustainable.
And we'll be live from the Tory party conference in Manchester, where our very own Andrew Pearce will be interrogating the politicians.
And I'm in Manchester at the Tory party conference, where the Tory party is struggling to get its voice heard. We're hearing from the Shadow Chancellor, Sir Mel Stride, setting out why the Tory party is the party you should trust with the economy. More of that later.
And some breaking news, France's Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has resigned after less than a month in the job. That brings the tally to 5 Prime Ministers in 5 years. Well, that puts the Tories to shame, doesn't it? Is Macron's government in crisis?
And Gary Neville has sparked fury by tearing down a Union flag from one of his Manchester building sites, as he urges people to rethink what patriotism is.
The division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry, middle-aged white men who know exactly what they're doing.
Nottingham attack victim Grace O'Malley-Kumar will be posthumously awarded the George Medal for her astonishing courage in giving her life to protect her friend. We'll be hearing live from her family at midday.
It's the King that's recommended that Grace receive this second highest civilian honour for bravery in Britain. I'll have the very latest shortly.
And the former England rugby captain and World Cup winner Lewis Moody reveals he's been diagnosed with motor neurone disease.
I don't want to get stuck in the negativity or the doom and gloom, and I want to stay positive. I want to, stay in the moment.
Well, yes, we are going to be going to the Tory party conference a few times during the programme. I was there all day yesterday. I've actually come down early this morning to London. I mean, it's quite an interesting atmosphere. It doesn't feel quite as busy as normal, but some of the panels that I was involved in yesterday had a full audience. But I think far fewer businesses and PR companies there than usual. I wonder why.
Yeah, she's lowered the audience by 50% by just being here. But does anyone really care anymore? I think that's the big question. I look at the front pages today. I think, well, actually, the Kemi Bade not being the leader of the opposition and Labour being so faltering in every other poll, they should be dominating the headlines, but no one seems to care. Do you care?
Well, we'd love to know what you think about that and all the other topics that we are covering today. So send your comments to gbnews.com/yoursay.
But first, here's your 60-second news update with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you, 9:30. The top stories from the newsroom this hour. Well, it is breaking news this morning. The French Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, has quit hours after unveiling his cabinet amid backlash. That shock move comes less than a month after he took office, amid fierce criticism from MPs over his largely unchanged lineup. Donald Trump is urging negotiators to move fast as peace talks begin in Egypt to end the war in Gaza. Hamas has accepted parts of his 20-point plan, including freeing hostages, but rejected calls to disarm. Israeli strikes, meanwhile, have continued overnight despite Trump's call to immediately stop the bombing. Here, Jaguar Land Rover is restarting production this week after a major cyber attack that cost the car maker around £50 million a week. Its Wolverhampton engine plant will be the first back online. At the Tory conference, Sir Mel Stride is expected to promise £47 billion in cuts, slashing aid, welfare and green subsidies, pledging to live within our means. He also says reducing foreign aid to 0.1% of income would also show fiscal discipline. In the Himalayas, 350 hikers have been rescued from blizzards near Everest's Tibetan slopes. More than 200 remain trapped as extreme weather battles the region and floods hit neighbouring Nepal. And former England rugby captain Lewis Moody has revealed he's been diagnosed with motor neurone disease. The 47-year-old World Cup winner says he's focusing on his family and embracing every moment after learning the devastating news just 2 weeks ago. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with you at 10.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good morning, welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Alex Armstrong and Miriam Cates.
Yeah, it's part of the Tory Party conference, isn't it? Tory Party conference. I can feel you're all enthralled at home, aren't you? I bet you can't wait to hear.
Well, of course, the big rumours were about whether or not Kemi Badenoch's leadership was under threat. But I think, as you said, the situation in France must give her some comfort, because 5 prime ministers in 5 years. I mean, it's like the French Revolution all over again.
It really is. And I'm just not surprised. I mean, obviously, France is in a complete crisis, and it makes us look sane, doesn't it, in this country?
Absolutely.
It really does.
Absolutely.
Well, anyway, foreign nationals could be barred from claiming benefits under Tory plans to slash almost 50 billion from government spending.
Well, we'll be crossing to the Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride, live in just under an hour. He's expected to argue that Britain can't keep spending money we simply don't have.
Well, he's certainly right. And GB News presenter Andrew Pearce joins us live from Tory Party conference. Andrew, what's the atmosphere like down there?
Well, I have to say, I've been coming to Tory Party conference since 1988 or 1989. I've never known it so empty. I'll be talking to a member of the Shadow Cabinet about that quite shortly. I think the party is dazed, stunned by its position in the polls. They're in 3rd place, and I saw a poll today, or was it yesterday, suggesting they could be down to 45 MPs, and we thought it was bad that they're stuck on 119. So I don't think the mood is great, but let's talk to Alex Burghardt, who is a member of the Shadow Cabinet, Cabinet Office Minister. I've got to ask you, where is everybody?
Look, last year, you remember, we had a leadership contest.
Yeah.
And I think that brought a few more people in. We're 4 years out from a general election, and last year we had a big defeat. So look, these are bound to be the slower times of the cycle. I mean, you'll remember what it was like in 97 and 98. You know, it was also pretty slow back then.
There were more people then.
Yeah, but there were also more people involved in all political parties at that stage.
Maybe your activists who aren't here have already left and gone to Reform.
No, I don't think that's true, Andrew. Don't be cheeky. That's
because
not right
you know,
at all.
Reform's membership is now up to 250,000.
So they
I think
say.
the Tories are barely on 120,000. Yeah, nobody really knows the Tory membership.
Well, nobody really knows Reform. It's all self-reported. It's not independently audited. So but you can carry on sort of repeating Farage's propaganda if you want.
Okay, let's talk about the Tory leader's speech. She says that a Tory government will kick out 150,000 migrants, illegal migrants, every year with this new border force, this Trumpian border force. She was flummoxed when she was asked in an interview yesterday, where will they go?
Well, it's up to them, but they'll have to leave the country. It's not, they've got to leave the country. It's not our concern where they go. It's for
so
them
you're
to
going
find
to put
out.
them on a plane to where?
Well, either. I mean, we will definitely have a Rwanda-style deterrent program, which will deport people to a safe third country. We will definitely have that, and could be with Rwanda. It could be with multiple countries.
150,000 won't go to Rwanda. When Rwanda, we're only going to take a few hundred.
No, that's right. But there'll also be lots of people who can go to other countries. Right? There are lots of safe countries around the world. There are lots of places that people can go to, but they can't stay here.
But why would these safe countries want our cast-offs?
Well, because some...
Are you going to pay them to take them?
No, you don't need to pay them to go. And that's what Labour are doing at the moment. You saw that flight that had deported a very small number of criminals. They were given £2,000 each.
Shocking.
Really shocking.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not what taxpayers in my constituency are paying money to the government for. We're not going to do that. People will have to leave. Their entitlement to stay in this country will end.
But if there isn't a return agreement with a country, I struggle to see how you will be able to say. So, for instance, if you've got 2,000 Afghans, are you going to send them back to war-torn Afghanistan, run by the Taliban?
So, where you have countries that you can't do a deal with, then that's why you have third country processing. And we had a deal with Rwanda, but there's no reason why you can't get deals with lots of other countries as well.
Why would anybody believe a word you say about this, bearing in mind that migration, legal and illegal, soared on the Tory watch? We had the famous Boris wave 1.2 million in 1 year. Why are they going to think you've had this Damascene conversion to cutting migration?
Yeah, absolutely everyone in our party wants to see a reduction, very, very significant, historic reduction in immigration. And that's why we're setting out at this conference here. The theme of this conference is stronger borders, stronger economy. And we're setting out this conference not just what we would like to do, but how we are going to do it. And you'll have seen the brilliant report that Lord Wolfson has written for us. Lord Wolfson Casey, one of the most senior barristers in the country, has written not just saying that we're going to leave the ECHR, but saying how we will do it. You know, going into the most intricate detail that anybody has ever done. I've been reading about ECHR departure for about 10 years. I can tell you no one has ever done the granularity of work. I'll tell you what, having been a minister in 3 government departments, that is a higher quality piece of legal advice than civil servants will give you. So anyone out there saying that, oh, you know, it's just easy, we'll get into government and we'll push a button and it'll all happen. They have no experience of government, they don't know how it works, and they will fall flat on their faces. It's the Conservatives that are doing the detailed work that will enable us to take back control of our borders.
On press time, just before I let you go, the problem is you're announcing you're going to leave the ECHR, you're announcing these mass deportations. It all seems Farage light, because Nigel Farage got there first, because Kemi Badenoch took the view that she would sink beneath the waves for a year and we wouldn't hear from her.
Farage has, what Nigel is doing, which he's very good at, is campaigning. Come out with something and say it. Nigel Farage saying, we need a British Bill of Rights. We absolutely don't, Andrew. And anyone who's read the report and done the work that Lord Wilson has done knows that there's absolutely no need. In fact, it would create all sorts of legal complications, exactly the sort we're trying to get away from. This is what happens if you're like Reform and you just rush out ideas without doing the hard work. We've done the hard work. It means we will be able to get answers for the British people if we get back into power.
All right, that's Alex Burghardt. He is the Tory MP for Brentwood and Ongar and the Shadow Cabinet Office Minister, and he says the Tories have done the hard work. Well, back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Andrew, and I might catch up with you in person later this afternoon. Well, joining us now to respond to that is the former Labour advisor to Yvette Cooper, Danny Shaw. Good morning. Thank you so much, Danny, for joining us on the programme. Now, these proposals by the Conservatives to cut benefits by £23 billion a year, they're very sensible proposals, aren't they?
Well, if they were so sensible, why didn't the Conservatives introduce them in the 14 years that they were in government? They had 14 years to do that and they didn't. So I do ask myself, and I would ask your viewers watching this, that question very, very seriously. What's happening here is that the Conservatives, who have slumped in the opinion polls, are trying to out-reform Reform UK by basically mimicking their policies or coming up with policies that are even more ridiculous than some of Reform UK's proposals. It's all very well to have carefully costed proposals, to have proposals that are actually grounded in reality. But when you have a proposal, for example, like cutting welfare benefits from every single foreign national, what are you going to do when people are destitute on the streets? What are you going to do when people have illnesses that need to be treated? What are you going to do when people literally have no money to live on? Are you just going to have more homeless people on the streets? Are you just going to sort of let them die and let them just get into poverty? I mean, these, I'm sorry, but these proposals are just not grounded in reality. It would be great if we could suddenly magic up these proposals in the way the Conservatives are suggesting, but you have to have a reality check as well. And I'm afraid
but Danny, isn't
the
that
Conservatives
exactly
are so
what they're
desperate
doing? They're facing the reality that welfare spending has risen over the past 10 years alone by £86 billion. Even if this £23 billion cut were implemented, it's only a quarter of the rise in the last decade. Surely it's not realistic to expect any government not to make cuts of this scale.
I think there have to be cuts to the welfare budget. I absolutely agree with you on that, Miriam. And I'm not an expert on welfare spending, but it is clear that the numbers are unsustainable. And the way to do that is to get more people back to work. And there are various means of doing that. Labour, I'm afraid, the Labour government sort of botched the last attempt to do that, because what they should have done was to do a review first and get people on board and explain the situation, set out various scenarios, and then come up with the proposals. It seemed to me that they came up with the proposals before doing the review, which is not the way to implement changes. So of course there need to be reforms, but this is just pie in the sky from the Tories. It really is desperate stuff.
Danny, is it not better to at least have a plan, as you said there? And I'm glad to see you are critical of it, because Labour obviously do need to cut the spending. We've got a black hole now the size of, what, 40 billion, 30 billion, it's whatever it is, it's well out of control. But the Labour Party is drifting leftwards. We've got Andy Burnham putting in his pitch to be Prime Minister. Angela Rayner was pitching to be Prime Minister before that, leaking her manifesto to various papers. It seems inevitable that the divide of the next election could be a high-spend Labour Party versus an austerity party with either Reform or the Conservatives. Either way, spending can't continue.
I think what the divide will be at the next general election is becoming clear. The divide is going to be about staying in the European Convention on Human Rights or withdrawing from it. That is going to be the key divide between Labour and the two parties on the right, Reform UK and the Conservatives, because the Tories have now adopted that as their policy. We know that that's Reform's policy as well. Labour are not going to come out of the European Convention. What they're going to seek to do is to try and change the convention in ways that give our courts, more leeway to sort of reject some of the sort of far-reaching provisions of the European Court and try and give more, if you like, credence or more, to give more say to in terms of our security and in terms of enforcing those laws, so that there will be some fundamental changes to the convention.
Danny, sorry to cut you off, but we've got to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Former Labour advisor to Yvette Cooper there, Danny Shaw.
Well, still ahead, former England rugby captain Lewis Moody has revealed that he's been diagnosed with motor neurone disease.
And next, Nottingham attack victim Grace O'Malley-Kumar will be awarded the George Medal for her astonishing courage. We'll see you shortly.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
You're ready, you can just see it buzzing. The New Zealand-France game is going on, the bronze final in the stadium at the moment, and there's about 45,000 people already in the stadium watching it. So the energy in this place is unbelievable, and the excitement, because this game is a real game of jeopardy, the final between England and Canada.
You've got caps galore, you've been involved in coaching men and women's rugby. You won in 1994. What's it like to be a winner?
Well, this is the shirt that I wore back in the day in 1994. This is my World Cup winning shirt, so I'm hoping it's going to bring a bit of luck to the girls. But it was an incredibly special time. But for me to see how the game has changed, we had 6,000 people watch us win that World Cup, and now women's sport in this country, it's our Lionesses, the Red Roses, the Cricket World Cup is the tickets are on sale for that next year, and people are choosing to watch women's sport and really, really enjoying the event. So it's fantastic, and the change over that 30-year span is quite remarkable.
What do you think has made the difference? Why is it becoming, as you say, football is the same. Why is it becoming more acceptable now? And not just for women and girls to follow the sport as well, but I go to West Ham regularly for my sins, but so many men are now starting to pay a little bit of attention without being too sneery.
Well, absolutely, but I think the biggest thing is the quality of the product. Because the girls have been given contracts and are now able to train, not have to go to work and then leave a full day's work and come training and then do almost a second job in order to deliver on the skills. Both the Lionesses, the Roses, everybody now at the top end of the game is being financially rewarded for it, so they can actually concentrate on their sport.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Well, a Nottingham attack victim, Grace O'Malley-Kumar, will be awarded the George Medal for stepping in to protect her friend before being killed, sadly, in a knife rampage in Nottingham.
Well, let's speak to GB News royal correspondent Cameron Walker, who joins us live in the studio. Cameron, a really significant award.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Front page of The Sun, grace and honour. This medal, the George Medal, is something that the King has recommended that Grace receives following her death. It's the second highest civilian honour for bravery that you can get in this country. So back in June 2023, Grace O'Malley-Kumar and her friend Barnaby Webber were walking back from a nightclub in Nottingham when they were attacked by a 30-year-old schizophrenic man. That man attacked Barnaby first, and Grace had time to run away, and she chose not to. She chose to try and save her friend and ultimately paid that price, 23 stab wounds she received and passed away. So what has happened now is that Grace, on recommendation of the King, following a campaign from the Sun newspaper, but also backed by the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, and the former Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, actually, Grace is going to be receiving this medal. It's not been officially announced yet. We're expecting that perhaps later on today. But I think it's quite significant, of course, because it's remembering her legacy. I think it's quite easy to focus on the attack itself, and of course we still have an inquiry ongoing as to how that was allowed to take place in the first place. But it's remembering the bravery of Grace, who wanted to be an army medic when she finished medical school at university. That's what she was studying in Nottingham, only 19 years old, of course, so it is really tragic. And a family friend, I think, quite poignantly has told The Sun this: she could have easily run away, but her instinct was to stand by her friend, and she paid the ultimate price for her courage. The family are incredibly grateful to the Cabinet Office and the King for recognising their extraordinary, brave and beautiful daughter, Grace. She was 19 when she put her life on the line and valiantly fought a 30-year-old armed with a large hunting knife. The family are so proud of Grace because this act shows exactly the person they knew her to be, someone who never abandoned a friend.
The best of Britain, honestly. People, I mean, what a brave young woman. Do we know who will receive the honour on her behalf?
It's going to be her next of kin. We're not entirely sure who, but that is presumably going to be her parents and her father. We believe they perhaps will be speaking a little bit later on today, so as soon as we have that, we'll bring that straight to you. The medal itself is expected to be awarded at Buckingham Palace.
By the King?
But possibly by the King. That's never confirmed until the day of, but yeah.
And is it unusual for the King to be involved in choosing who receives these awards?
It tends to be the Cabinet Office that ultimately makes the decision, but the King, as head of state, has ultimate final sign-off, and that is what has happened here. The award is always given on behalf of the King or His Majesty the King himself, and always on his recommendation. So the Cabinet Office essentially does the groundwork, the kind of, you know, the data and all of that, and then the King does the ultimate seal and sign-off.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I mean, this inquiry is going to be so important to this family as well, and I know I have spoken to some of the victims of different acts of violence like this, and I think what they're going to need more than anything, and the medal is a great honour, of course, for Grace, but what they're going to need is justice, and to see that these sorts of acts can't happen again.
Yeah, absolutely. The public inquiry, of course, started in May 2025. It's about the NHS and how that mental health patient could have got out.
Well, Cameron, thank you, and we will be bringing that at midday if the family do speak. Well, coming next...
The division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry, middle-aged white men who know exactly what they're doing.
Miriam had the same reaction I had when I first saw that video. Gary Neville sparks fury with his controversial comments as he tears down a Union flag at his building site. This is Britain's Newsroom. Of course, it's your favourite news show on GB News. See you shortly.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It was a stormy weekend for many of us, and there is still some cloud and rain around, but generally a more settled start to the new working week. Plenty of cloud, though, across western parts of Scotland. Some outbreaks of fairly persistent, mostly light rain and drizzle will continue as we go throughout the rest of Monday. Any mist and fog that we might have seen first thing across the very far south should clear, leaving plenty of sunny spells, perhaps quite a bit of prolonged sunshine across much of England and Wales through this afternoon. Fairly breezy across the very far northwest, but generally feeling much warmer than it did over the weekend. Highs in the south of 20, 21, perhaps even 22 degrees, and even across eastern parts of Scotland, we could see temperatures reaching into the low 20s. Still a cloudy and damp end to the day on Monday, though, across the very far west of Scotland. Outbreaks of perhaps slightly heavier rain arriving as we go through Monday evening, that pushing its way north and eastwards. A bit of a cloudy end to the day across parts of Northern Ireland, northern parts of England too, perhaps one or two clear spells developing in between, and still quite a lot of cloud around as well across parts of Wales and southwest England. Maybe some outbreaks of showery rain in places, but eastern areas generally holding on to some clearer spells, at least through the first part of the night. The heavier rain across western parts of Scotland pushes its way north and eastwards before this more organised band of rain arrives from the northwest, very slowly sinking its way south and eastwards into the early hours of Tuesday morning. But quite a bit more cloud around across much of England and Wales, and that generally means a milder night to come for all of us, temperatures quite widely holding up into the double figures. The area of rain across the northwest of Scotland continues to very slowly edge its way south and eastwards throughout much of Tuesday. Quite a bit more cloud around for much of England and Wales compared to what we saw on Monday, so not feeling quite as warm here. Maybe one or two brighter breaks or sunnier spells are possible, but the best of any sunshine definitely across the northwest of Scotland through Tuesday afternoon as that front clears through. But temperatures will be a little down compared to what we saw on Monday, but it will still feel pleasant if you do catch any sunshine.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M8 is restricted eastbound at Junction 7, Eurocentral. Congestion is on the A48M westbound from Junction 29 Castleton to St Mellons. In Gloucestershire, a collision on the M5 southbound entry slip at Junction 12 has closed all lanes, causing significant disruption. Buckinghamshire's M25 clockwise between Junctions 16 and 17 has delays due to an accident, with one lane closed. Motorists face about 1 hour delays today. And on the trains, Chiltern Railways is disrupted between Aylesbury Vale Parkway and Amersham. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good morning. It's 10 o'clock on Monday, the 6th of October. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Alex Armstrong and Miriam Cates.
Any moments now, we'll hear from the Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride live from the Tory party conference, who says foreigners will be banned from claiming benefits. But as the Conservatives continue to trail well behind Reform and Labour in the polls, will this be enough to win over voters?
Well, the Labour Minister Mayata Fanbulla told GB News she was unconvinced.
When I hear the Conservative Party talking, I tend to roll my eyes because they've had 14 years. They had 14 years to fix the housing crisis. They had 14 years to fix an immigration system that they broke.
Well, GB News will be live from the Tory party conference in Manchester, where our very own Andrew Pearce will be interrogating the politicians there.
Well, I'm going to be talking to Ian Duncan-Smith, the former Tory leader, about the growing scandal over a China spy case, which was mysteriously cancelled, and it involves the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor.
Well, some breaking news. The French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has resigned after less than a month in the job. Is Macron's government in crisis?
Gary Neville sparks fury by tearing down a Union flag from one of his Manchester building sites as he urges people to rethink what patriotism is.
The division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry, middle-aged white men who know exactly what they're doing.
And the Nottingham attack victim, Grace O'Malley-Kumar, will be posthumously awarded the George Medal for her astonishing courage in giving her life to protect her friend. We'll be hearing live from her family at midday.
And former England rugby captain and World Cup winner Lewis Moody reveals he's been diagnosed with motor neuron disease.
I don't want to get stuck in the negativity or the doom and gloom, and I want to stay positive. I want to, stay in the moment.
Welcome back, and we will be hearing shortly from the Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride as he sets out his vision for how he's going to cut benefits. We're going straight to Mel Stride now.
The innovation, the dynamism, the constant yearning for faster, better, stronger. I visited technology companies at the very forefront of the revolution in artificial intelligence. Venture capitalists ploughing billions into bristling new things. Lower taxes, cheaper energy, and a people plugged in to making things happen. Right there, in that place, you could almost reach out and touch the future. I glimpsed everything, from driverless cars to humanoid robots, to AI, to advanced reasoning, to quantum computing, to simulated brains, to neuromorphic architectures. I know you don't know, I know. I didn't know what that meant either. Now, you might think that a trip like that would have depressed me when I look at our own economy, stagnating under the cold, dead hand of a Labour government. But far from it, far from it. It raised my spirits, because it reinforced in me the sense of what is possible for our country. For ours is a great country of drive and ambition and creativity, of decency, of tradition and heritage. We made the modern world, and we can remake ourselves. For there is a path for us to a more prosperous future. Where this country, our country, can get back to a sense of we can and we will. A country in which it is instinctively understood that wealth creation should be fostered and cherished. A country that once again understands that wealth is created not by governments striking unions and a bloated public sector, but by entrepreneurs, businesses, and the hard-working millions. That the makers matter. And to business today, I say loud and clear, Labour may have given up on you, but this Conservative Party never ever will. We will always be there for business. And I know about the vital importance of business. I have lived it all my life. And our great country can bring that culture of enterprise. But to do so, the first thing we need is hope. In a world of great uncertainty, of a failing government and a populist alternative that is totally detached from reality, it is our party that has to provide it. Not in the way of glib words, but in the deep well of thought that will provide the solutions to our many problems. In short, hope can only come with a plan. A radical plan to rebuild our economy. And today, I want to tell you how we will do it together. But first, let me tell you why I'm so passionate about that better vision for Britain. Why I feel that we can reach out and seize it. Why I know that we can and we will. Well, I look back at my own story. My mother and father left school at 15 and 14 years old. They had to make their own way in the world. But they had drive. They wanted to create a family. They wanted to provide. So they started their own business. And I saw close up what that really matters and means. The long hours, the risks, the stress, the setbacks, and the triumphs. And my parents gave me opportunities that were not there for them. I won a free place at a grammar school. I studied hard. I earned a place at university, the first in my family to go to university. And you know that I seized that opportunity with both hands, and I ran with it as far and as fast as I possibly could. I never looked back, not once. And I had those age-old words ringing in my ears. If you have a good education, then you have the whole world laid out before you. And when I left university, I didn't go into politics. I did what my mum and dad did. I built something, created businesses, working from scratch from the kitchen table, bringing together teams of people with a common purpose. And I had Nigel Lawson cutting my taxes and removing the red tape. And the whole spirit of that time was one of enterprise and opportunity. And I have in my mind now that image of Margaret Thatcher and Richard Branson on that boat travelling down the Thames with a light playing on the water like an endless stream of opportunity. And later, I had in my hand a key to the first home that I owned. The foundation for the rest of my life. For the wife that I had yet to meet, for the family that I was yet to create. That is a Conservative vision of opportunity, aspiration, and achievement. And that is what we are going to bring back. We can and we will. But to do that, we have to fully understand and address the failings of this Labour government, to show our country that there is another way, that the vicious cycle of more spending, more taxes, more borrowing, more debt can be broken. And to demonstrate that it is our values, conservative values, of sound money, low taxes, entrepreneurship and hard work that can make that happen. And millions are crying out for this. Just look at what this government is doing. Constantly pumping up the size of the state, increasing spending by $100 billion a year. That's 10 times what they said in their manifesto. And they said their plans involved hardly any tax increases. But what have they done? A £40 billion tax raid, most of it on jobs. And now that Rachel Reeves has blown a vast hole in the public finances, yet more tax rises await. In fact, under Labour, nothing is safe from the taxman. Not your job, not your home, not your pension, not your farm, not your business, not even that which you simply wish to pass on to your own children. You name it, they'll tax it. And we say, enough is enough. And the real-world consequences of all of this? Unemployment is at the highest level since the pandemic. In the hospitality sector alone, 89,000 jobs have been destroyed, hitting our young people the hardest. Futures crushed, and the cost of living is soaring. We left inflation bang on target. Under Labour, it's doubled, and growth has tanked. You remember how Labour claimed they were pro-business? Well, just last week, the Institute of Directors said that business confidence was at its lowest level ever. The result? Thousands of wealth creators have left the country. Labour have no clue about how to build the economy of the future. Although on driverless cars, to be fair, we do have at least one in operation. Yes, it's called the Labour government, led by a Prime Minister who can only do U-turns, a Chancellor who only knows how to work the brakes, and a mob of backbenchers desperate to grab hold of the wheel. Now, of course, thanks to Labour, our national debt is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Debt is set to rise every single year until it is the size of the entire economy. The interest bill this year alone amounts to £6,000 for every working household in the country. And Labour's profligacy means our borrowing costs are now higher than Greece. Lower growth and higher debt sees us weaker and increasingly vulnerable. That is not just irresponsible, it is dangerous. And look at reform. They are just as bad. Reform's manifesto promised tens of billions in unfunded commitments. They want to scrap the two-child benefit cap, spending billions more on welfare, and they want you to pay for it. We say that if you want to fund a large family, then that's great, but you should look to yourself to pay, not the state. And Reform want to get back to the days of nationalisation and state control. They are marching to the left. Be in no doubt, they are the party of more spending and more debt. And when it comes to reform, be assured of this, that when the glitter, the shimmy of the sequined dress, the razzmatazz, the spinning plates, the fireworks have faded, you will be left with emptiness. The dull bell alone, the hollowed out promises that never were. but reform are being found out. And it is this Conservative Party that is holding them to account. Let's face it, we're the only party that gets it. The only party that will stand up for fiscal responsibility. And that means we have to face some hard truths to which other parties turn a blind eye. We must get on top of government spending. So where Labour have failed, we will bring down our spiralling welfare bill, completely overhaul our benefit system, and put an end once and for all to the human tragedy of millions being consigned to a life on benefits. That is not just a financial imperative, it is a moral duty. For we believe in the dignity and decency of work. That is essential to the health of the individual and the stability of our country. But equally, it is the purest belief of our party that looking after the most vulnerable is the hallmark of a civilized society. But to do that, we need a system that is fair and commands the widespread support of those who pay for it. The current system does not. So we will ensure the benefits are properly targeted at those most in need, with people thriving in jobs where they can and should be working. That includes stopping claims for people with less severe mental health problems, where what is needed is treatment and support, not simply cash. Because we know that the stability, pride, and social interaction of work actually improves these conditions. So we say, Labour want to park you on benefits, we want to help you to a better life. And a fairer system also means ensuring that only British citizens can access welfare, because citizenship should mean something. Our approach will get the welfare bill down by £23 billion. The culture of something for nothing must end now. Now, the civil service is too large. In 2016, there were 384,000 civil servants. Today, there are 517,000. We will bring the numbers back down, saving £1 in every 4. And we simply cannot justify higher taxes at home to pay for more spending abroad. So we will significantly reduce the overseas aid budget. Now, we will also take the decisive steps to deter people from coming here illegally and stop pouring billions into asylum hotels. That is an utter scandal, and we will put a stop to it. We can, and we will. We will also stop spending billions on Ed Miliband's vanity projects, which are simply driving up bills. We will put an end to them once and for all. In total, the savings I am setting out today would reduce the size of government by almost £50 billion. Now, I am a realist, and we must recognise that this Labour government will be leaving huge debts behind. So I cannot simply say we will use all of those savings to spend more elsewhere or to cut taxes. We will bring taxes down, we must, but we will only do so when it is affordable, just as Nigel Lawson did. Because we know where the alternative path leads. We saw that with a mini budget in 2022. So let me be clear. The Conservative Party will never ever make fiscal commitments without spelling out exactly how they will be paid for. We are and will always be the party of fiscal responsibility. Labour have trashed the finances, and it is only the Conservative Party, our Conservative Party, that can be trusted to fix them. So I want to make a very clear statement to you today. Those savings will mean we can urgently bring down government borrowing, because we cannot deliver stability unless we live within our means. No more pretending we can keep spending money we simply do not have. It falls to us, as today's Conservatives, to do the responsible thing. That's the right thing for our country, and it's also the right thing for the next generation. So to younger people I say, we will get debt off your back. We can and we will. And I want to go further, to send an unequivocal message to those young people starting out in life. If you work hard and do the right thing, the Conservative Party is on your side. So we will reduce the benefits bill, and as a consequence, we will fund tax cuts that are laser-focused on aspiring young people. So we will introduce something called the first job bonus. When someone takes their first job, the first £5,000 they pay in national insurance won't go to the taxman. It will go towards a deposit on their first home, or it will go towards savings for their later life. For a working couple, that means £10,000, helping them buy a home, build a family, save for the future. That is the Conservative dream. A dream that built my life. It is why I stand before you today, and I'll fight every single day to make sure that that dream is burning bright for younger people and for generations to come. But responsibility also means building a stronger society through a stronger economy. That is a Conservative value. It means understanding that it is small businesses, the collective efforts of millions, those who get up early and work all hours, who strive and serve, the little platoons that together form a mighty army. They are the force that binds communities together. And at the heart of those communities stand our high streets. Where they thrive, we thrive. Where they fall into decay, the crime and fear seeps in. And so I say, small businesses and our high streets are the unsung heroes. They employ, they create, they protect. They make us alive and whole. Yet for many businesses, the burden of Labour's tax rises is simply too much to bear. Pubs closing, shops sitting empty, high streets hollowed out. Under Labour, many have seen their business rates double. We need to get business rates down. In fact, we need to go further, much, much further. So today, I can announce that as a direct result of getting public spending under control, a future Conservative government will completely abolish business rates for shops and pubs on our high streets. End of. End of, finished, gone. for controlling spending is not an end in itself. It wills the means. It gets the taxman off your back. It sets some of the hardest working people in our country free. We can, and we will. So let there be no doubts. We are the only party of fiscal responsibility. We are the only party that understands the deep challenges that our great country faces. And we are the only party that will meet those challenges head on. Where Labour choose debt, we choose discipline. Where they choose welfare, we choose work. Where they choose stagnation, we choose aspiration. All they have to offer is pessimism, higher taxes, fewer jobs, lower growth, and a mountain of debt for the next generation. What we stand for is something far bigger and far greater than that. Conservative values, opportunity, aspiration, optimism. We are the party of hope. We are the party of the future. We can and we will.
Well, there you have it. That's Shadow Chancellor there, Mel Stride. And to talk about that and many other things that's happening at Tory Party Conference, we have pollster, academic and GB News superstar Matt Goodwin and former editor of Labour List, Peter Edwards, in the studio. Matt, I'll start with you. What did you make of Mel Stride? Were you enthralled?
Not particularly, no. I think the Conservatives are in a bit of a difficult place because on the one hand they're saying, look, the main challenge from Nigel Farage on reform is one that doesn't have the answers, but at the same time, the Conservative Party has now developed a bad habit of copying the answers that are being put forward by reform, whether it's leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, whether it's restricting welfare benefits to UK citizens, whether it's looking at comprehensive reforms to save billions of pounds, particularly around the welfare regime, which I know for a fact Reform are going to be coming out with. I think, this is a party that it's not really having a conversation with the country anymore because the country is tuned out. Path dependency in politics matters. Where you start determines where you end up. And where this party has started is that dismal 14 years of government. So it's very difficult for them to have a really strong, engaging conversation with the country.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because I guess people used to say that Reform were pound shop Tories, and now it seems like the Tories are pound shop Reform. It's really interesting.
Peter, this is a question, though, that all the major political parties are grappling with. A welfare bill that's going out of control, and yet the polling suggests, certainly, that when you ask people about specific benefits that should be cut, there isn't really anybody in favour of any of it. So the Conservatives are right, aren't they, to try and look for savings?
Every party is trying to look for savings. I'm not going to use your phrase, the Conservatives are right, aren't they? But what do we mean when you talk about the benefits bill? As you said, there are lots of different types of benefits. So I think although the rhetoric of people like Reform have undermined the concept of a social safety net, I think there's still public support in that, and I've had many friends and family members who've been out of work for a matter of weeks or months, and a safety net should be there to provide. But we're all aware, and probably what gives Rachel Reeves nightmares is particularly the rise of sickness benefits, often driven by mental health for people of working age. That's what's driving future, slightly terrifying projections for the social security bill, setting aside the triple lock on pensions, which so far no mainstream party has been willing to touch in their search for cuts. So I think every party, when they're in opposition, looks for cuts. And we know that social security spending is important because the national debt has risen enormously, and as a country, we're still recovering from the economic impact of COVID. I suspect whatever Mel Stride, Shadow Chancellor, announces today will be a footnote in history, barely that. Mel Stride won't be Chancellor, and in a year or two's time, we'll have forgotten what he said today.
Well, this is interesting, Matthew, because I've seen interviews with Priti Patel. I've seen interviews with, we've obviously had Boris Johnson coming out the other day saying he regrets net zero, but Priti Patel and Boris Johnson still not saying sorry or apologising for mass migration, that the Boris wave, as it's now famously called. What do you make of that?
Well, look, I put it like this. If you invited an architect into your home and the architect destroyed your home, would you invite the architect back? Of course you wouldn't. And I think many people feel that way about what the Conservative Party, Boris Johnson and Priti Patel did by opening up the floodgates to masses, historically unprecedented amounts of low-skill, low-wage migration from outside of Europe. Now, the fact that Boris Johnson can come out and say, well, look, I got it wrong on net zero, but won't come out and say, I got it wrong on one of the biggest policy blunders in our country's history, I think is absolutely outrageous. And the people watching this show out there, you know, the hard-working, tax-paying, law-abiding majority, they can see what has happened here. They can see that they were betrayed, that the Conservatives said in their 2019 manifesto, lower overall numbers, and they can see that they were given the exact opposite. Until the Conservatives have that reckoning on mass migration, they're simply not going to be allowed back into the conversation.
Totally agree.
Peter, I'm so sorry, we haven't got time for any more, but we will come to you first on the next block. But we're going to go to your 60-second news update now with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. 10:30, the top story this hour. France's Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, has resigned just hours after unveiling his new cabinet. The shock move comes less than a month after he took office amid fierce criticism from MPs over his largely unchanged lineup. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride has told the party conference there's no more pretending we can spend money we don't have. The Conservatives, though, are promising a £5,000 first job bonus to help young people buy their first home, funded by £47 billion in spending cuts. Donald Trump is urging negotiators to move fast as peace talks begin in Egypt to end the Gaza war. Hamas has accepted parts of his 20-point plan, including freeing hostages, but rejected calls to disarm. Israeli strikes, meanwhile, have continued overnight. Here, Jaguar Land Rover is restarting production this week after a major cyber attack that cost the car maker £50 million a week. Its Wolverhampton engine plant will be the first back online. In the Himalayas, 350 hikers have been rescued from blizzards near Everest's Tibetan slopes. More than 200, though, remain trapped as extreme weather batters the region. And former England rugby captain Lewis Moody has revealed he's been diagnosed with motor neurones disease. The 47-year-old World Cup winner says he's focusing on his family and embracing every moment after learning the devastating news just 2 weeks ago. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with a full roundup at 11.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, coming up next, we're going to be crossing back to the Tory conference.
And I'm at the Tory conference, and look what's here. 3 outfits worn by Margaret Thatcher. I'll be explaining why Mrs. Thatcher is such a dominant theme at this year's Tory party conference.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. It was a stormy weekend for many of us, and there is still some cloud and rain around, but generally a more settled start to the new working week. Plenty of cloud, though, across western parts of Scotland. Some outbreaks of fairly persistent, mostly light rain and drizzle will continue as we go throughout the rest of Monday. Any mist and fog that we might have seen first thing across the very far south should clear, leaving plenty of sunny spells, perhaps quite a bit of prolonged sunshine across much of England and Wales through this afternoon. Fairly breezy across the very far northwest, but generally feeling much warmer than it did over the weekend. Highs in the south of 20, 21, perhaps even 22 degrees, and even across eastern parts of Scotland, we could see temperatures reaching into the low 20s. Still a cloudy and damp end to the day on Monday, though, across the very far west of Scotland. Outbreaks of perhaps slightly heavier rain arriving as we go through Monday evening, that pushing its way north and eastwards. bit of a cloudy end to the day across parts of Northern Ireland, northern parts of England too, perhaps one or two clear spells developing in between, and still quite a lot of cloud around as well across parts of Wales and southwest England. Maybe some outbreaks of showery rain in places, but eastern areas generally holding on to some clearer spells, at least through the first part of the night. The heavier rain across western parts of Scotland pushes its way north and eastwards before this more organised band of rain arrives from the northwest, very slowly sinking its way south and eastwards into the early hours of Tuesday morning. But quite a bit more cloud around across much of England and Wales, and that generally means a milder night to come for all of us, temperatures quite widely holding up into the double figures. The area of rain across the northwest of Scotland continues to very slowly edge its way south and eastwards throughout much of Tuesday. Quite a bit more cloud around for much of England and Wales compared to what we saw on Monday, so not feeling quite as warm here. Maybe one or two brighter breaks or sunnier spells are possible, but the best of any sunshine definitely across the northwest of Scotland through Tuesday afternoon as that front clears through. But temperatures will be a little down compared to what we saw on Monday, but it will still feel pleasant if you do catch any sunshine.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Motorists on the M8 westbound face major disruptions due to a broken down vehicle, causing congestion near junction 25. In Wales, new regulations on the M48 limit heavy goods vehicles to 7.5 tonnes, potentially impacting deliveries. Cumbria's A5595 southbound is congested, likely extending journey times. In Buckinghamshire, a serious collision on the M25 between junctions 16 and 17 has closed one lane, worsening traffic. And on the trains, all cross-country services through Gloucester are suspended today, causing delays. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's Tory Party Conference Day today, isn't it? And GB News presenter Andrew Pearce is joining us live from Manchester there. Andrew, what have you got behind you there?
Well, this is fascinating. As one who is a huge fan of Margaret Thatcher, this is the outfit Mrs. Thatcher was wearing when she made her tearful exit from number 10 back in 1990. In the middle is the iconic royal blue outfit. This was one of her favourite outfits. She bought it in 1989, and on one of her most famous speeches in the Commons, when she famously said about European expansion, no, 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 that was the outfit she was wearing at the time. It triggered, of course, Geoffrey Howe's resignation from the cabinet and the end of her premiership. And this, of course, is the extraordinary outfit she wore when she got in that tank in Germany on manoeuvres and took the control of a tank. And another iconic image of Mrs. Thatcher, that was in 1986. And the reason these are here, these have been lent to the Tory party by a donor who bought these outfits for his own private collection. Don't titter at the back there. Because next week is the 100th anniversary of the birth of Mrs. Thatcher, and there's going to be a huge dinner at London's Guildhall to celebrate Mrs. Thatcher. So with me now, I'm going to talk to Hannah Bithell-Vaughan, who is from the Conservative Party archive, which is I'm talking to Hannah Bithell-Vaughan, who is the Conservative Party archivist, and the archive, of course, is based at the Bodleian Library. Hannah, huge interest still in Margaret Thatcher, even though she left office 35 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a steady stream of people all day and all the day yesterday as well, who are absolutely enamoured by her. She's still such a figure in the party and in the political world in general.
A dominant figure, Britain's first woman Prime Minister, Britain's first political women lead. I mean, she became Tory leader in 1975, and if we can now look here, Hannah, we've got lots of documents relating to Mrs. Thatcher's rise, her struggles to get through Parliament. Tell us about some of these documents.
Yeah, so we've got some documents here from sort of the early 1950s where she was trying to become a politician, but she had some struggles. They were put in seats, putting her forward for seats that weren't necessarily Conservative safe spots, so she had to really fight for them, and unfortunately the first few times she wasn't very successful. And then obviously she had children and she had a law career as well, so she had to sort of really wonder what was her competing priorities. So we've got a couple of handwritten written letters here where she sort of says, actually, I need to be put into cold storage for a while. I need to sort of prioritise my family life. And then she sort of comes back and says, actually, no, politics is where I want to be. I know it. Can you put me forward for another seat, please?
Because she fought Dartford twice and lost, and then I think she was virtually giving up, and then suddenly she got selected for Finchley.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so the first few times in Dartford, there was a bit of a struggle. She was put forward with a large majority from the Conservative side, but unfortunately it just didn't work for her the first two times. But then she was put forward for Finchley and won it overwhelmingly and kept it for the majority of her career. Yeah.
And tell us about a couple of these documents here. So there's one here, it says, they describe her, they say she excels at questions, gives straight and convincing answers. She's got a good brain, attractive personality, good speaking ability.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of memos to CCHQ sort of saying exactly who she was as a person and people's impressions of her. So she was a very good speaker. There's a letter here that sort of says how packed all of her performances were. So she was having sort of 200 people turn up to her meetings at the wards and things, which is pretty unheard of for that sort of thing. But yeah, she always packed out her venues and she always had loads of people asking her sort of questions and she could always answer. She was seen as a very plain-speaking politician and people understood her and could relate to that.
And just finally, I've looked through all those memos. None of them suggest that Margaret Thatcher had it in her to become Britain's first woman Prime Minister.
Yeah, I mean, certainly they don't actually say that. Early on in her career, she's still making a name for herself, but they put forward the same points that are echoed all the way out through her career. So you can see here at the starting point where she was an excellent speaker, she was very plain-spoken, and that's what people enjoyed and that's what made her such a famous name.
Absolutely. That's Hannah Bithelbaum from the Conservative Archive. I'm Andrew Pearce. I'm with you at the Tory Party conference, and I've got to tell you, this Thatcher exhibition is the must-see. People are flocking to it, getting photographs done, and there's apparently a photograph of me on the internet because I'm on bended knee worshipping at the altar of Margaret Thatcher, because I have a confession to make. I do have a Thatcher shrine in my study at home, which includes a life-size cutout of Lady Thatcher, and why wouldn't I? Back to you guys in the studio.
Slightly stunned into silence there, Andrew. Perhaps you could bring it with you on Thursday when you come back to present the show. I'd quite like to see that.
Try it on.
She could stand with us and do the headlines. Well, thank you very much, Andrew Pearce, live there in Manchester. And let's bring our panel back in. We've got GB News presenter Matt Goodwin and former editor of Labour List, Peter Edwards. Peter, let's start with you. I assume that you have very little in common with Margaret Thatcher politically, but from an objective point of view, can you understand why she is seen as so iconic and has such a major legacy?
I can, and her legacy endures. I mean, obviously, Blair and Thatcher were the two in my lifetime that have had a colossal impact. It's notable that some of the key Thatcher reforms have not been reversed by any government, left or right. Subsequently, think about curbs on trade unions, which I regret greatly, and mass privatisation, which I regret greatly. So the Thatcher economic settlement has been endured, but at the same time, and I speak as someone that's lived in West Yorkshire and I've lived in Cumberland, the deindustrialisation and the penalty in the north of England continues to endure 30 or 40 years on. So let's be honest and realistic, as you were, about her legacy, and let's ensure she's not reinvented purely as a Brexit caricature laying waste to the EU, because she was a much more complex and nuanced figure than that.
But yeah, Matthew, because we talk about Thatcherism quite a lot, don't we? And many people suggest that Reform's going to become this sort of new Conservative party. However, that being said, it does seem that there could be a dividing line here between the Tories and Reform. Reform aren't going full Thatcherism. They're saying we need to actually nationalise some industries, something that Thatcher would be spinning 180 degrees in a grave over, because at the end of the day, it's becoming more and more popular now to have some industries owned by the British state, particularly for national security reasons and globalisation sort of faltering.
Yeah, I think the tendency to look back to Thatcherism is partly what underscores the weakness of the Conservative Party, but also the weakness of the country. Thatcherism was a specific set of answers to a specific set of economic problems. What we are facing today are not just economic problems, but are demographic and cultural problems. So you need a completely different set of answers. And I think that Reform have clearly on the one hand, there are Thatcherites within the party, people who look to Thatcherism, but those same people say they have to go beyond that now. We have to actually recognise we're in the aftermath of the great financial crash. We're in the aftermath of globalist companies undercutting British workers by using cheap migrant labour, and we are living amidst what you might call crony capitalism that needs to be reformed in a way that Thatcher wouldn't have done. And I think most senior people in reform understand what the country is crying out for is not a return to 1979, but an altogether different set of propositions that can carry the red wall in the north and Wales, as well as the true blue Conservative South.
Absolutely.
Peter, I just want to return to what you're saying about deindustrialisation. I'm from Sheffield, Steel City, very similar experience. But successive governments have tried and failed to bring back industry. And one of the sticking points seems to be the commitment to net zero and the fact that we now have the highest industrial energy prices in the world, at least in part because of those policies. Do you think at some point, if Labour really does want to fix this problem, they're going to have to look again at those kind of energy policies?
Well, energy policies we could spend an hour on. In terms of the net zero target, I suspect that may end up getting pushed back by a few years because of the economic pressures and the conversion pressures, if that's the right word, to get all the kit you need. But to cast your mind briefly back to the last Labour government, of course, there's no point building new factories if they're not economic, but the last Labour government did a lot to restore cities like Leeds, where I lived, Liverpool, through other means. Liverpool is this flowering, fantastic tourist destination. I was there last week. Leeds had enormous boom in legal, financial and professional services. These are, of course, the industries of the 21st century. And what people, as you know, in Yorkshire don't want is to be patronised saying, you know, here, love, have a coal mine, when it's not economic. They want jobs and growth, but those jobs and growth are going to look a bit different to 40 years ago.
All right.
Peter, thank you.
Yeah, and Matthew, thank you very much. We've got some breaking news to give you here. Author Gilly Cooper has died at the age of 88. The much-loved author who is behind books, including Riders and Rivals, has passed away following a fall, with her family announcing the news today.
Well, moving on now. Coming up next...
I don't want to get stuck in the negativity or the doom and gloom, and I want to stay positive. I want to, you know, stay in the moment.
Well, we'll be speaking to Motor Neurone Disease Association as England rugby legend Lewis Moody reveals he's being diagnosed with the condition. But first of all, we've got some weather forecast.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's a bit of a mixed picture across the Mediterranean over the next couple of days. Plenty of showers around for the Canaries as we head through Tuesday afternoon. Perhaps some fairly brisk winds too. But for much of Spain, Portugal, southern parts of France and Italy, there'll be plenty of sunny spells on offer. However, for the Balkans, a lot of wet weather around, perhaps even some snow over the mountains. So definitely feeling a little bit cooler here with some brisk winds too. There is going to be more sunshine on offer as we head through the rest of the week, and temperatures quite widely into the 20s for most of us.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel. Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 9 minutes to 11 and you're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, it's been revealed this morning that England rugby legend Lewis Moody has confirmed he's been diagnosed, sadly, with motor neurone disease. Take a listen to this.
It's never me that I feel sad for. It's the sort of sadness around having to tell my mum, having to tell the boys. I mean, you know, two brilliant boys, and that was pretty heartbreaking, wasn't it? But I don't want to get stuck in the negativity or the doom and gloom, and I want to stay positive. I want to, you know, stay in the moment.
Well, tragic news, and we're now joined by a spokesperson for the Motor Neurone Disease Association, Neil Murphy. Niall, thank you so much for joining us. Absolutely devastating news, every family's worst nightmare. What kind of message does your charity have for people concerned about this disease?
Well, if you are somebody who is experiencing problems with mobility, speech, or dexterity, and you're worried that you might have motor neuron disease, to definitely speak to your GP or another health professional so that you can get professional advice and help that you might need.
Yeah, Niall, and as tragic as this case is, and it is certainly tragic, there will be a lot of awareness raised about motor neurone disease now. Will someone like, many hundreds of people, thousands of people that suffer from this terrible, terrible illness, will they now have at least a spokesperson, a new spokesperson perhaps to look to?
Absolutely, and you know, we send our thanks to Lewis and his family for being so open about this diagnosis. It is devastating, but the fact that he's been able to come up publicly and speak about this news, it will give hope to the 5,000 people living across the country with motor neurone disease, and it helps shine a light on motor neurone disease.
Now, we know that there is currently no cure for this disease, sadly, but what kind of treatments are available, and are there any prospects for more curative remedies in the future?
Absolutely, there's lots of research ongoing. The M&D Association invests millions of pounds into M&D research every year, combined with government investment and investment from the pharmaceutical industry. We are really hopeful that in the future there will be treatments coming down the pipeline. At the moment, there is no cure for MND, which is why it's such a devastating diagnosis. But there is one treatment coming down the line for people with a very specific form of MND, SOD1 MND, which affects 2% of the MND population. There is now a treatment called tofersen, which has been shown to be effective for this very specific type of MND. And that slows down the disease, or in some cases has halted it altogether, which is brilliant progress.
Yeah.
And although it's only effective for 2% of the MND
so sorry.
population...
No, my deepest apologies for interrupting you and talking about such an important issue. Please come back and speak to us soon. Yes. That's spokesperson there for the Motor Neurone Disease Association, Niall Murphy.
Well, if the story has affected you, the Motor Neurone Disease Association can be reached on their helpline. Look it up on Google.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a stormy weekend, it's a more settled picture now, fine and dry for many areas, but at times it could still be wet and windy across the far northwest. High pressure is mostly dominating, particularly across the south, bringing us the fine, settled conditions. But notice more isobars on the chart to the northwest, so often blustery here. Also more cloud and some wet weather, particularly across western Scotland. A fair amount of cloud across northern and western parts of England today, but across central areas, parts of the east and southeast, plenty of sunshine here. And it is going to be feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 20 to 21 degrees Celsius across the far southeast. Even across eastern Scotland it should be fairly warm in the sunshine, temperatures reaching the low 20s here also. Now, through the course of the evening, it's still going to remain fairly blustery across coasts of Scotland. Still outbreaks of rain continuing across the very far north. It could be heavy here at times. A chance of coastal gales through the course of the night, particularly around western exposed coasts. Northern Ireland and northwest England could also see a fair amount of clouds start to push in from the west, fairly similar across Wales and parts of the southwest too. And this cloud could be thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of drizzle, particularly around any hilly areas. More cloud will continue to push in from the west, so it's going to be a fairly mild night. Any breaks in the cloud, particularly across the east, we could start to see some fog develop during the early hours of the morning, and further outbreaks of rain spreading into the far northwest, so quite a damp start for Scotland and Northern Ireland through the early hours of the morning. But as I say, it should be a mostly mild night, lows reaching around 11 to 12 degrees Celsius across many towns and cities. So a wet start once again across western parts of Scotland, also Northern Ireland. This band of rain will slowly push its way southwards, moving into the Scottish borders, northern parts of England, perhaps even northern parts of Wales through the course of the day. As it clears Northern Ireland and Scotland, turning brighter here, bar the odd shower. But elsewhere across central areas, parts of the southeast, more cloud around, so it's not going to be feeling quite as warm. Highs reaching around 18 degrees Celsius.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Yes, it's 11 a.m. on Monday, the 6th of October, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Alex Armstrong and Miriam Cates.
Now, the Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride has pledged to ban foreigners, and ban foreigners from claiming benefits and to axe business rates for pubs and restaurants. But as the Tories trail behind in the polls, will this be enough to win over voters?
I'm not too sure. And Labour Minister Miata Fanbullah told GB News she was unconvinced.
When I hear the Conservative Party talking, I tend to roll my eyes because they've had 14 years. They had 14 years to fix the housing crisis. They had 14 years to fix an immigration system that they broke.
Well, we'll be going back live to the Tory party conference in Manchester, where Olivia Utley and Christopher Hope will be interrogating the politicians.
Yes, I'm here at a rather subdued Conservative Party conference where Kemi Badenoch is on a mission to carve out a space for the Tories between Reform and the Lib Dems. Will she manage it? Find out more with me very soon.
Tories say £47 billion worth of cuts if they win the election next time, £5,000 for first-time buyers. And a new poll we'll be discussing very shortly finds that dumping Kemi Badenoch wouldn't cut Nigel Farage's poll lead.
And Gary Neville sparked fury yesterday by tearing down a Union flag from one of his Manchester building sites as he urges people to rethink what patriotism is.
The division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry, middle-aged white men who know exactly what they're doing.
Well, the Nottingham attack victim Grace O'Malley Kumar will be posthumously awarded the George Medal for her astonishing courage in giving her life to protect her friend. We'll be hearing live from her family at midday.
Former England captain and World Cup winner Lewis Moody reveals he's been diagnosed with motor neuron disease.
I don't want to get stuck in the negativity or the doom and gloom, and I want to stay positive. I want to, stay in the moment.
And tributes have poured in for the much-loved author Dame Jilly Cooper, who has died aged 88. Yes, of course, we will be going back to the Tory party conference, as will I, on the train after we finish this show. But really interesting there, what Olivia Utley was saying about Kemi Badenoch trying to carve out this space between Reform and the Lib Dems. But some pollsters are saying that those votes just don't exist. People who have switched from the Conservatives to the Lib Dems did that 5, 6, 7 years ago. And really, it is now a straight fight between the Tories and Reform for the same voters.
I just think they've got a bit of an identity crisis in the Conservative Party. Kemi Badenoch sort of copying Trump here, they're copying Reform there. They need to be themselves themselves, and I think they just don't know what that means at the moment, and that's causing them this abysmal polling, in my opinion.
Well, some of the plans that they are now finally unveiling on the ECHR, on benefits, on immigration, do seem to be well worked out and robust, but the problem is they haven't said anything for 18 months. Why would people start listening now?
And the reality is, honestly, I think people don't care about the detail anymore. They don't want to see a 200-page document from a lawyer. That's exactly the sort of stuff they dislike about the Labour government, and they disliked about the dithering in the previous Tory governments. So I think Kemi Badenoch's got it wrong, and I think she's going to be out next year.
Well, people also don't like it when people get into government without a plan, as this Labour government seems to have done. So maybe they're between a rock and a hard place. Well, let us know what you think. gbnews.com/your say.
But first, here's your news with Sam Francis.
Miriam Alex, thank you very much. Good morning to you. Just after 11 o'clock. Well, the top story, the Conservatives are promising a £5,000 boost for first-time buyers, calling it a first job bonus to help young people onto the property ladder. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride unveiled the plan at the party's conference in Manchester this morning, saying it will be funded by £47 billion in cuts. Welfare, the civil service and foreign aid are all in the firing line as the Tories try to prove they are tougher on spending than Labour. Well, it comes almost a year since Kemi Badenoch took over as Tory leader and weeks before Labour's budget, where tax rises haven't been ruled out. Let's take a listen to what Mel Stride had to say a short time ago.
No more pretending we can keep spending money we simply do not have. It falls to us, as today's Conservatives, to do the responsible thing. That's the right thing for our country. And it's also the right thing for the next generation. So to younger people, I say, we will get debt off your back. We can and we will.
Well, that comes as a major shake-up to the home buying system could make moving house cheaper, faster and far less stressful. The Labour government says its proposals could shave a month off the process and save buyers around £700 on average. Plans include forcing sellers and agents to provide more upfront information and introducing binding contracts earlier to stop chains collapsing. Housing Secretary Steve Reed says it's about turning a simple dream into a simple reality, with a full roadmap expected in the new year. Well, breaking in the last hour or so, France has been plunged into fresh political turmoil after the Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, quit less than a day after unveiling his new cabinet. He says conditions were not fulfilled for him to continue, blaming gridlock in Parliament. The shock move comes just 26 days after he took office, becoming France's fifth Prime Minister in under 2 years. It leaves President Emmanuel Macron facing mounting pressure to call early elections or risk another short-lived government. Stocks in Paris this morning have already fallen sharply since the announcement. Staying with international news, and Donald Trump says peace talks between Israel and Hamas in Egypt have been very successful so far, urging negotiators to move fast to avoid what he described as massive bloodshed. Hamas has agreed to parts of a 20-point US plan, including freeing hostages, but rejected calls to disarm. Meanwhile, Israeli airstrikes have continued overnight, despite the US president calling for an immediate halt. Both sides are now sending top delegations to Cairo for what could be the most crucial negotiations since the war began nearly 2 years ago. Here, Jaguar Land Rover is restarting production this week after a major cyber attack forced the car maker to shut down its UK factories for more than a month. The first site to reopen will be JLR's engine plant in Wolverhampton. The hack is thought to have cost the company around £50 million a week. The government has pledged a £1.5 billion loan guarantee, though, to help suppliers hit by the shutdown. JLR says its recovery programme is now firmly underway. Nearly 30 million people in the UK who brought an Apple or Samsung phone could get £17 each if a landmark lawsuit against tech giant Qualcomm succeeds. Consumer group Which is taking the chip maker to the Competition Appeal Tribunal in London, accusing it of inflating prices and abusing its market power. The 5-week trial will determine whether Qualcomm's practices pushed up smartphone costs for British consumers. If Which wins, it could mean £480 million in payouts across the UK. Hundreds of tourists have been trapped by blizzards on the Tibetan slopes near Mount Everest as unusually heavy snow and rain sweep across the Himalayas. Rescuers have already led around 350 hikers to safety, but more than 200 remain stranded. In neighbouring Nepal, meanwhile, at least 47 people have been killed by floods and landslides triggered by the same extreme weather. The latest Gallantry Awards, which honour extraordinary acts of bravery, have recognised 20 people, including Nottingham student Grace O'Malley Kumar, for exceptional courage in the face of extreme danger. The 19-year-old medical student was killed in 2023 while trying to protect her friend Barnaby Webber during the Nottingham attacks. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer says her legacy will live on as a powerful example of heroism. Former England captain Lewis Moody has revealed he's been diagnosed with motor neurone disease, the same condition that claimed the life of Rob Burrow. The 47-year-old World Cup winner says he only learned of his diagnosis 2 weeks ago after noticing weakness in his shoulder during training. Speaking alongside his wife, he said telling his teenage sons was the hardest thing he's ever had to do.
Having to tell the boys, I mean, you know, 2 brilliant boys, and that was pretty heartbreaking, wasn't it? But and I didn't like the boys not knowing that we were having a tough time because they'd want to support us. So as soon as we could, we wanted to tell them.
And tributes are being shared across the literary world this morning for much-loved author Dame Gilly Cooper, who has sadly died at the age of 88. Her children say her death has come as a complete shock after a fall on Sunday morning. Her agent, Felicity Blunt, called her unbeatable in her ability to write stories that added to the sum of human happiness. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with you shortly. Now, though, it's over to Britain's Newsroom.
Hello, welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's 9 minutes past 11, and the Tories of today promised to scrap business rates for 250,000 pubs, restaurants and other smaller businesses if they're elected at the next general election.
Well, of course, they're trailing behind in the polls, third place, someone 14%. But will it be enough to win voters back? We're now joined by GB News political editor Christopher Hope.
Yeah, that's right. It is quite interesting, isn't it? We thought this party would spend 2 years thinking about ideas to win the next election. Instead, they've splurged them out already. We had, of course, that commitment to lead the European Convention on Human Rights. That report there, of course, from a senior KC, which I think actually has managed to preserve unity in the party. No one's resigned yet. Had that happened a year ago, if Robert Jenrick had won the leadership, I think it would have been resignations, people quitting the party in protest. So I think they're kind of doing the job here behind the scenes. I'm not sure it's cutting through to voters and listeners. But joining me now is Scarlett Maguire, who's a pollster from Merlin Strategy. Now, you got some polling out today, Scarlett. The headline in the Telegraph says dumping Badenoch would not reduce Farage's poll lead.
Yeah, so this was quite interesting polling. So amongst the public in these head-to-heads, Kemi Badenoch performs better against Nigel Farage than either Boris Johnson, than Robert Jenrick, than James Cleverly, any of these sort of contenders that you might hear waiting in the wings. I mean, it is worth saying that Badenoch still performs poorly against Farage with the public in general, but better than the other contenders.
Is that an incumbent advantage, you think?
I think it's
she's already leader, so
exactly.
we see
I think it's incumbent advantage. I think what you see with Jenrick and with Cleverly in particular is that their name recognition is really hurting them there. So it's not that more people are choosing Farage than they do with Kemi, but less people are choosing Cleverly and Jenrick. They're just saying don't know instead.
And the votes are tired of this sort of cycle of leaders, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they are. And I think what is interesting, though, is that with Conservative 2024 voters, Boris Johnson actually beats Nigel Farage. He's the only one out of the 4 of them that beats Nigel Farage, only just, but he does. And that actually brings me on to another point, which is I was doing some focus groups with Conservative voters recently who had switched to Reform. And actually, what I found interesting was they were basically trying to say, not in as many words, saying we're sort of up for grabs, but we never hear from the Conservative Party. We never hear about them. We never hear them say anything. And I do think what is quite interesting is that potentially Kemi Badenoch might be performing better if people just heard more from her. People just don't hear from her at all.
She's talking about things. I mean, she's on GBNews quite a lot, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's the substance, isn't it? But we're now seeing substance, aren't we? I mean, we're told just moments ago they're going to stick with the triple lock at the election next time round, which I haven't heard her say that yet. So we are getting a series of policy announcements. Is that in response to Farage's poll lead? I don't know. They would say not.
Yes, but you thought it probably was, because I think they are really feeling the pressure. Because look, as you say, this polling is quite favourable to Kemi Badenoch relative to the other contenders. However, she still had a pretty terrible year as Conservative leader when you think about the polls. She's gone backwards by more than a third from the worst ever election defeat, and at the moment that doesn't show any signs of stopping.
She hasn't won back at the ground when she became leader, has she? She's behind that point.
She's significantly behind, not just behind, but significantly behind, and the Conservative Party are genuinely looking extinction in the face at the moment.
Still looking at that, despite
so.
the upbeat nature of a conference like this. Definitely a bubble, isn't it?
It's a huge bubble.
You mentioned Boris Johnson being popular. This Boris wave idea is catching on, isn't it? The numbers of people allowed through on Boris Johnson's watch. Is that a problem for the Tory party? Is it their poll tax?
Well, I think it's a great question, and you know, we even have Keir Starmer using the phrase Boris wave now, which is something I never expected to hear. But
because
no,
it's damaging. They use it because it hurts the Tories.
Exactly. Well, but what's quite interesting about it is I polled this a couple of months ago about how much voters blame Boris Johnson specifically for the spike in immigration. What's interesting is quite a Teflon politician. They don't blame him yet, but we do know that the biggest reason that Conservatives defected from the party from 2019 to 2024 was this issue of immigration. So it's still something that their voters are incredibly angry about.
And that's why, I mean, tackling illegal migration is all very well, but there are the legal migration numbers, the Boris wave, isn't really apologised for properly. We heard a bit from Kemi Badenoch, I think, in November last year, but not much since.
Yeah, I think it's a common misapprehension that the voters are only upset about illegal migration. Now, they are more upset about illegal migration because it challenges an idea of fairness, about, you know, having to come in.
Literally queue jumping.
Brits hate queue jumping. But there is also significant unhappiness with legal migration as well. And actually, there's even a slim minority of the country that say that it's been damaging for the country overall. That is something we're not used to seeing in Britain. So it is something that I think they're looking for answers from all parties, from Labour, Conservatives and Reform, to start talking about legal, not just stopping the boats.
So the clock is ticking on Kemi Badenoch because from November the 2nd, MPs can put letters of no confidence about her leadership to the chairman of the 22 committee, Bob Blackman. What will your advice be to those MPs now as they hover over their letters?
I think it would be to see what does this achieve. At the moment, it doesn't look like any other candidate would necessarily perform better than Kemi Badenoch. And in general, again, I think they need to be thinking about what they can do to voters and putting forward a new and energised party, be that under a new leadership or not, who's to say, but I think there's plenty more work to be done with the leader they've still got.
OK. Scarlett Maguire, thank you for joining us from Merlin Strategy. Now I'm going to throw to my colleague Olivia Utley, who's somewhere near me, but I don't know where.
Hello, yes, I am here in front of the guide dog stand. You've got a lovely dog here. We were looking for some Conservative members to speak to today, but it's pretty hard to find one. Pretty much everyone here seems to be here because they are being paid to be here, either because they're a lobbyist or like this lovely guide dog here because they are representing their firm. There is a bit of a sense of it's subdued over here, but there is no doubt. There is no doubt at all that the Conservative Party leader, Kemi Badenoch, is desperately trying to find some sort of niche for the Conservatives. At some point, she said that there was going to be no Conservative policies announced until 2027. Well, all of that changes at this party conference. We've already heard that the Tories want to leave the ECHR. We now have this exemption for national insurance for young people looking to buy their first home. We are hearing that the Conservatives want to be the party of sound money. Kemi Badenoch has said that Reform is actually left-wing on economics. So it's not so much trying to carve out a path between the Lib Dems and Reform, perhaps. It's more trying to find a place for a party that is interested in fiscal conservatism. But at the moment, as the polls are demonstrating, and as Scarlett explained just now, there doesn't seem to be that much of an appetite in the country for fiscal conservatism. The Tories are just hoping that the next 3.5 years changes all of that.
Thank you so much, both of you there, Christopher Hope and Olivia Utley at Tory Party Conference. Well, GBNews presenter Andrew Pearce, as you just saw moments ago in the previous part of the show, spoke to former Conservative Party leader Sir Ian Duncan Smith on the dropping of this big case here, this big story, dropping of the Chinese spy case. Take a listen.
There's a bad smell about this. Just explain in simple terms why this trial was so significant in the first place and why it's even more significant it's not happening.
Well, they were accused, these two, of passing documents from the offices of those who did a thing called the China Research Group, some Conservatives, and some of those documents were sensitive, quite sensitive, in security terms. And so that process, they were then arrested, charged with essentially going to be spying. Yeah. And I know at the time I met the security services on this because I'm a sanctioned MP by China. So they were briefing me.
Because you've been so critical.
Exactly right, yeah. And I also set up a thing called the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, which got 53 countries, politicians very worried about China around the world.
Yeah.
So I was briefed on it, and they made it very clear to me, in no uncertain terms, that they believed that they had enough evidence so that they were banged to rights when they brought them for prosecution. So that they were working on over the next period, a year and a half, 2 years. And then at the last moment, we suddenly see the case has been dropped by the CPS. And the government statement that said, well, they didn't interfere with the CPS, it was their decision. Of course, they're right.
CPS is the Crown Prosecutor.
Exactly right. They're right that they would make that decision, but they would make that decision because they didn't think it would go through. Why? And the answer is the government failed to say that China was a threat. And if they're not a threat, they're not an enemy.
Or not an enemy.
And under the legislation, which has now changed, but for this lot, it had to be the old legislation, unless you were leaking to an enemy state, you are not seen as a spy. And so they knew that would cause the CPS to go, well, then we can't go ahead with the trial.
And here is where it becomes even murkier, because Jonathan Powell, who is the Prime Minister's foreign policy advisor, national security advisor, it's been had private meetings behind the scenes and was instrumental in the decision for China not to be named as an enemy.
Well, let's join the dots up on this one.
Yeah.
He'd gone to Beijing already previously, Jonathan Powell, by himself, but not with another minister. He goes to Beijing and he talks to Beijing behind closed doors. Then he comes back, and then very soon after that, this trial dies. There's not a chance. And I believe, and many do, that while he was in Beijing, the government is desperate for some kind of trade arrangement with China. They're completely barking mad because all China wants to do is dump all their, overproduced, cheap slave labor stuff on us. But that notwithstanding, comes back. There are two things that China wants and was demanding. One, we want the super embassy, which we are opposing at the moment. Don't do that, you don't get your trade.
Super embassy in London.
Exactly right, which they're planning to build. And the second one was drop the case.
Well, that interview between Ian Duncan-Smith and Andrew Pearce there. And in response, the Cabinet Office has insisted that Labour ministers have not been involved in any decisions over the evidence, and they claimed that only the CPS could explain why the prosecution was withdrawn.
The government also denied that any political pressure was applied on the CPS to drop the case.
Well, after the break, we're going to be discussing Gary Neville's controversial comments.
The division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry, middle-aged white men who know exactly what they're doing.
Who does he think he is? Gary Lineker. This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's almost 11:25. This is Britain's Newsroom live across the United Kingdom with Alex Armstrong and Miriam Gates.
And we've got our panel back in the studio. We've got pollster, academic and GB News presenter Matt Goodwin and former editor of Labour List, Peter Edwards, in the studio. And let's start with this story about Gary Neville, another footballer getting involved in politics. Peter, what do you make of his flag intervention?
I think Gary Neville's done a lot to regenerate Manchester, and he's done a lot to kind of hold Labour's feet to the fire. I think what this shows is perhaps the perils of trying to cover such a complex issue in 2 or 3 minutes while walking down the high street, or one of the high streets in Manchester, because many of us are patriotic, and Gary Neville played 85 times for his country, so he can't be faulted for patriotism. We also know that displays of both the St George's Cross and the Union flag, another flag, have been hijacked to a certain extent by a small number of people on the far right. But to try and cover all that in 3 minutes at a time when political tensions are quite high is a bit tricky, and I'm still not totally sure what Gary Neville was saying beyond calm down.
Well, shall we have a listen to what he actually said?
All being turned on each other, and the division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry, middle-aged white men who know exactly what they're doing.
Peter, you said there, he played for England, so that makes him patriotic. I don't think it does. I don't think that's a measure of patriotism, if I'm being honest. I think a man who pulls down a Union flag, though, from a building because he thinks it's somehow divisive, Matt, is actually a demonstration of how patriotic he might be.
So I think a lot of people in British politics are gaslighting the country. He said that flying the flag is disgusting. What's disgusting is imposing mass uncontrolled immigration on a country that never voted for it, that is forcing people to live with broken borders and then charging them £15 billion for the privilege of doing so. And when they talk, be very clear about this, when they talk about hijacking the flag, what they never say is that actually the flag is being hijacked by people who want to turn Britishness and Englishness merely into the celebration of diversity and multiculturalism. And when they say we want to reclaim the flag, what they mean is they want to reshape who we are around the celebration of bland, universal themes like diversity, whereas actually everyone watching this show, everyone out there in the country knows that flying the flag is about saying, no, we do have a distinctive identity of our own. We are proud to celebrate that identity, history and collective memory. And what it is ultimately is an act of resistance. That is what flying the flag has become today. Resisting mass uncontrolled immigration, resisting broken borders, resisting this never-ending attempt to dilute who we are and reshape it around words that, to be frank, don't really mean anything at all.
Peter, what do you make of his accusation that this is a lot of angry, middle-aged white men who know exactly what they're doing?
First of all, I want to push back on what Matt said a bit. Let's not use the word gaslighting. That's more akin to something you get in a domestic abuse court case. So I think that's a wrong word to use in this context. In terms of Gary Neville, I mean, I'm a white middle-aged man, hopefully not an angry one, and there's one or two white middle-aged men in this studio. I think it goes to this point.
Was that a thinly going jab at Matt, was it?
No, I didn't say angry. I just said a white middle-aged man.
Maybe it was me.
Actually, I am angry. I'm angry with the state of the country, and gaslighting is a perfect word for it, because you know what gaslighting is defined as? It is presenting an alternative perception of reality that is not grounded in reality. And that is what this Labour government's doing. It's what Gary Neville is doing. People out there should be able to fly their national flag, because those same people tell us that we have to fly every other flag, right? Pride flags, BLM flags, Palestine
Matt, isn't it just the case that people actually live in different realities, and that's one of the perhaps the consequences of the disruption of British identity, is that some people, perhaps like Gary Neville, live in a kind of world where they have plenty of money, they hang around with other people with similar views, and their perception of reality is that actually Britain's doing OK, thank you very much, and they don't understand why other people are making what they see as a big fuss about immigration and wanting to stand up for British identity. So couldn't it just be the case that some people are living in very different reality?
I think it's worse than that. They are repudiating the things that actually make our nation state possible. Have to be clear what's going on. This is what Roger Scruton called the culture of repudiation. They want to repudiate our identity, our history, our culture. They won't allow us to show the symbols of those things because they're ashamed of those things. But millions of people in this country are proud of those things. They want to affirm those things.
Miriam, let me try and answer your question. Some hours ago, you did ask me a question before Matt came in again. So I think Gary Neville used this phrase, middle-aged white men, I think it was, which is maybe not the best way into it, because, again, I worry that we pick out particular groups and it becomes more and more divisive, the way we talk about it. And Matt rails against labels which he feels are being kind of imposed on the country, and I don't feel they're being imposed. So I'll give you one very brief example. For many years, I lived in the London borough of Tower Hamlets, where there's an enormous Bangladeshi community and a big Muslim community, and it's generally a pretty happy place to live in terms of cohesion. Obviously, there's poverty and stuff like that. But, you know, we didn't use words like diversity, and we didn't have things forced upon us, because, you know, the word diversity makes you think of central government and perhaps a mandate, but actually you talked about respect and getting along with each other and sensitivity and friendship, and these are the ties that bind, I think, rather than perhaps edicts from central government. But I think Matt's getting a bit too carried away with the idea that, you know, there's an Orwellian central government shoving things down our throat, which is just not the case.
Can I ask something very quickly, if you don't mind me interjecting? Because, you know, people like Gary Neville, this is what really irritates the British public, is they actually don't mind a fair-minded debate. But what's happening is that you've got these marches almost every single weekend since October the 7th, where the Palestinian flag has been flown exceptionally divisively in this country, and not a word of condemnation after multiple arrests by people on the left, and not a single word uttered by Sadiq Khan, who condemned the Unite the Kingdom rally when it was Union Jacks being flown. But when you get 40 arrests and less than 1,000 people attending a Palestine rally and many thugs there, it's complete silence. Why is that, Peter?
Well, Sadiq Khan hasn't been silenced, that's wrong. But coming back to the flags...
He has. Where has he condemned far-left thuggery on the streets?
Condemned what?
Far-left thuggery on the streets.
Many times he's condemned...
No, he hasn't. That's a lie.
You asked me a question.
No, Peter,
no, please,
let's be honest.
Don't use the phrase, that's a lie.
It is. I've been scouring his social media for the last 72 hours. He's not said a word about those arrests.
You're interviewing yourself. Don't use the phrase, that's a lie. If you're GBNews and you're talking about having a respectful debate...
Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Tell me when he said it.
Don't use the phrase... That's a lie. OK. Now, I'm going to make a wider point, because I don't want to, it's boring to get sucked into this kind of endless tit-for-tat. So I think you should be allowed to fly the flag of any country you like. What you shouldn't be able to do is shout anti-Semitic things or Islamophobic things. And I have a particular concern about the process. They're a big group of people. The one this weekend is a wrong time to have it. It's a wrong time to have it.
And also, by the way, just lastly, the idea that Tower Hamlets is a beacon of diversity and multiculturalism.
I'm going to have to leave it there.
I didn't say that, Matt. You're going, but I didn't say that, did I?
Massive
time for the news
didn't say that.
Sam Francis. Thank you, Sam.
Very good morning to you. 11:30, the top story this hour. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride has told the party conference in Manchester there is no more pretending we can spend money we don't have. The Conservatives are promising a £5,000 first job bonus to help young people buy their first home, funded by £47 billion in spending cuts. France's Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has resigned just hours after unveiling his new cabinet. The shock move comes less than a month after he took office amid fierce criticism from MPs over his largely unchanged lineup. Donald Trump is urging negotiators to move fast as peace talks begin in Egypt to end the war in Gaza. Hamas has accepted parts of his 20-point plan, including freeing hostages, but rejected calls to disarm. Meanwhile, Israeli strikes have continued overnight. Jaguar Land Rover is restarting production this week after a major cyber attack that cost the car maker around £50 million a week. Its Wolverhampton engine plant will be the first back online. In the Himalayas, 350 hikers have been rescued from blizzards near Everest's Tibetan slopes, but more than 200 remain trapped as extreme weather batters the region. And former England rugby captain Lewis Moody has revealed he's been diagnosed with motor neurone disease. The 47-year-old World Cup winner says he's focusing on his family after learning the devastating news just 2 weeks ago. Those are the headlines. A full roundup from me at midday.
Yes, welcome back. Well, up next, we'll be crossing back live to Tory party conference where Chopper will be interviewing the former Defence Secretary.
You're watching Britain's Newsroom?
That's
on
right.
GBNews.
We're seeing Grant Shapps shortly at the stand here at the Tory party conference. Is it right then that there's no point in replacing Kevin Badenoch given the polls? We'll ask him that.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. After a stormy weekend, it's a more settled picture now, fine and dry for many areas, but at times it could still be wet and windy across the far northwest. High pressure is mostly dominating, particularly across the south, bringing us the fine settled conditions, but notice some more isobars on the chart to the northwest, so often blustery here. Also more cloud and some wet weather, particularly across western Scotland. A fair amount of cloud across northern and western parts of England today, but across central areas, parts of the east and southeast, plenty of sunshine here. And it is going to be feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 20 to 21 degrees Celsius across the far southeast. Even across eastern Scotland it should be fairly warm in the sunshine, temperatures reaching the low 20s here also. Now, through the course of the evening, it's still going to remain fairly blustery across coasts of Scotland. Still outbreaks of rain continuing across the very far north. It could be heavy here at times. A chance of coastal gales through the course of the night, particularly around western exposed coasts. Northern Ireland and northwest England could also see a fair amount of clouds start to push in from the west, fairly similar across Wales and parts of the southwest too. And this cloud could be thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of drizzle, particularly around any hilly areas. More cloud will continue to push in from the west, so it's going to be a fairly mild night. Any breaks in the cloud, particularly across the east, we could start to see some fog develop during the early hours of the morning, and further outbreaks of rain spreading into the far northwest, so quite a damp start for Scotland and Northern Ireland through the early hours of the morning. But as I say, it should be a mostly mild night, lows reaching around 11 to 12 degrees Celsius across many towns and cities. So a wet start once again across western parts of Scotland, also Northern Ireland. This band of rain will slowly push its way southwards, moving into the Scottish borders, northern parts of England, perhaps even northern parts of Wales through the course of the day. As it clears Northern Ireland and Scotland, turning brighter here, bar the odd shower. But elsewhere across central areas, parts of the southeast, more cloud around, so it's not going to be feeling quite as warm. Highs reaching around 18 degrees Celsius.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. It's 23 minutes to 12 and you're watching live with Miriam Kate and Alex Armstrong.
Well, in light of Labour's latest pledge, today in our Snap poll, we're asking, do you support the police getting new powers to restrict protest? Now, you can scan the QR code on your screen now to vote. And Miriam, what do you think of it?
Well, I think from what I've heard so far from the Home Secretary, it does sound sensible. She's going to amend the Public Order Act to mean that police can take into account how many of a particular type of protest there have been in a particular type of place and use that as evidence to perhaps ban or restrict some. And I think that's sensible. Of course, we need a right to protest. But these protests have been going on for 2 years, same time, same place every week. They're making Jewish people feel unsafe. There's lots of racist chants that goes on at these protests. It does seem that the disruption is too much now.
Do you know what my problem with it is? I don't want the government having more power to determine when people can't protest. I don't trust governments. Inherently, I never trust government. I think that's a very sensible place to start. And I just don't want to give them more of our freedom. And I think, actually, I genuinely believe because they haven't, and any of them said anything about those. And I said that to Peter when he was in the studio. None of them have said a word about the 40 arrests, about those Gaza protests the other day. But they do when it's others. So I've got a big worry that these powers could be weaponised against specific protests, particularly migrant hotels.
Well, that's why I think the amendments, when they're put down, need to be looked at carefully. But I think there's another really important point here, which is that police resourcing is not unlimited.
True.
And people are very cross about shoplifting, for example, rising so much in the last couple of years. Well, it's not incidental, the fact that so many police forces every weekend are taken from all over the country, have to come to London to police these protests.
No, I do understand.
There's got to be some sort of compromise.
I do understand that. It's a difficult one, but anyway, to dig into some more, we've got GB News political editor Chris Hope joining us live from Tory party conference. Chris, what have you got for us?
That's right, Alex, Miriam, hello again. Welcome back to the conference here. With me now is Grant Shapps, who's been telling me off camera he is the... Well, you say it for our viewers.
I think the correct stat is I've been in more cabinet posts than anyone else alive. Although one or two of them are for a very short period of time. But some for a long time. So.
Yes, but you're chairman, housing, business, energy, defence, home.
Yeah. That's it.
But the home one is so short, your daughter says, Dad, leave it out.
Don't never mention it. Yeah, that's right. That's
right. It's embarrassing, Dad.
Yeah. You can't unbecome Home Secretary, though. And I noticed when I went back into the building on one occasion for some ceremony that I was there on the wall going back to the 1700s, all the Home Secretaries, and I'm listed there even though I was there for 6 days.
You do it for 6 days, and that's more than I've done.
So, there, exactly.
Listen, it's interesting atmosphere, isn't it? I mean, it feels that the party's got past a hurdle here. The ECHR withdrawal moment. Yeah. The party hasn't split. No one has resigned. There's now a foundation for the next election. That is a starting point, despite the fact the voters aren't really caring about the Tory party.
I think that's actually spot on. And during my 6 days as Home Secretary, I came to the conclusion, actually, very clearly by the end of that week, that the only way we will ever be able to get a grip of the situation on our borders, and specifically the small boats, was and did involve leaving the ECHR. It's not the only thing we have to do, but it was critical to it. So I'm really pleased. Now, most people would think of me as a sort of moderate in the party, I suppose, and, but I recognise, and have done for a long time, we have to tackle this issue because no government's ever going to be trusted until you conceal your own border.
I can hear the viewers shouting at the TV right now, why didn't you do it when you had 14 years in power?
Yeah, well, I mean, this problem itself wasn't going on for 14 years, it was the latter part of it. And
actually, 3 or 4 years.
And actually, I'd say with respect to what was going on, we were passing the legislation, including Rwanda, which I know the flights hadn't got off, but we'd seen a quarter drop in the number of people crossing in that last year.
Yeah.
Starmer comes in, abandons that whole thing, actually having voted against it, I think I'm right in saying, including the House of Lords, 400 times. 400 times against these things, comes in, all hell breaks loose. We've now seen the record numbers that we've ever seen. So first of all, we were headed in the right directions. Secondly, we weren't going far enough. And the ECHR, I think, is absolutely right. And as you say, fascinating that at this conference it's caused no ructions at all, because sensible people know, but this government does not. You must be able to control your own borders, and the ECHR is now incompatible.
I think it is important this happened, because that means that your former colleagues in the Shadow Cabinet can't rebel against a Casey's opinion. If he says you can do it, that's your ammo to take on the blob, lawyers and the rest who say you can't do it in government.
The idea that the sky will fall in if you do X or Y, we saw this with the Brexit thing, right? People say, oh, if you leave, the sky will fall. Well, absolute nonsense, We are a proud and independent nation. We must be able to seal our borders. And if there is a treaty or a law or something we've signed up to that prevents us from doing the first job of government, secure our borders, we must leave.
There's polling today saying that it's no point replacing Kemi Badenoch. Of course, her time when you can start challenging her as your colleagues in Parliament can write letters of no confidence to Bob Blackman, the chairman of 1910-22 committee, that runs out on the 2nd of November. Would you replace her?
No, far too soon.
Why not?
Far too soon. Thatcher.
Far too soon, so do it later.
No, I mean, I hope she succeeds.
Yeah.
Thatcher, second year of her own opposition administration, deeply unpopular. People forget this now. Deeply unpopular. You've got to give a leader, actually anybody in a new job, time to learn sometimes. Sometimes mistakes will be made, Kemi said herself. And I'm not, I wasn't even a supporter of her campaign or anything. But for goodness sake, give her a chance. And I think, actually, as we start to see policies, the CCHR policy today, the fact that we'll remove people who have no right to be here, and I hope a massive focus that we'll see on the economy, because this is our real opportunity. Labour screwing up the economy royally, terribly. Jobs up, unemployment up, inflation up. Reform say they want to cut taxes and also spend more, and the two are incompatible. Eventually you've got to have a sensible Conservative party to sort those things out. So I hope we go heavy on the economy. I hope we can build trust in the lead.
That's what her advisors tell me. The focus is the economy. £47 billion worth of cuts, £5,000 for people to buy new homes. It sounds like it's going in the right direction.
Popular with young people who want to buy a home,
But no one's listening, Grant Shapps. Now you run a group called Conservatives Together. You're trying to skill up, train up future MPs for the Tory party.
Yeah.
But we're seeing very little interest in the Tory party amongst our viewers.
By the way, I think it's completely natural. This is literally what happens after elections. I can remember William Hague becoming leader and everyone said, Tory party's dead. The Sun had it on their front page. The dead parrot party, after that old Monty Python sketch. This is perfectly normal after an election. You hold your nerve. As you say, Conservatives Together, which I co-founded, we launched last year, expanded up a lot this year. We're training dozens and dozens, and eventually we hope hundreds of people who to be, I think, better MPs because they actually know what they're going to come into and be ready for it. That's the way forward. Think about the future in the longer, not just the sort of what happens in the next 2 weeks in the polls.
Sir Grant Shapps, thank you. There's Sir Grant Shapps there with some optimism, it seems, for the Tory party's prospects.
Thank you, Chopper. Well, after the break, we're going to be looking at a scandalous story about a Blackpool hospital where the huge number of staff have actually been arrested. We'll be talking to Judy Bindel about that.
It is a bonkers story. We couldn't believe it's not been national news, but we're going to talk about it here on GB News. Moving on, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
Looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's a bit of a mixed picture across the Mediterranean over the next couple of days. Plenty of showers around for the Canaries as we head through Tuesday afternoon. Perhaps some fairly brisk winds too. But for much of Spain, Portugal, southern parts of France and Italy, there'll be plenty of sunny spells on offer. However, for the Balkans, a lot of wet weather around, perhaps even some snow over the mountains. So definitely feeling a little bit cooler here with some brisk winds too. There is going to be more sunshine on offer as we head through the rest of the week and temperatures quite widely into the 20s for most of us.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. Now, 6 medical staff at the stroke unit of Blackpool Victoria Hospital have been sent to prison for serious criminal offences in the past 2 years alone.
It's been dubbed the worst hospital in the NHS as it's rated the lowest standard by the Care Quality Commission of, it's been branded inadequate.
Well, we're now joined by journalist Julie Bindle. Julie, thank you so much for joining us this morning. This is an extraordinary story. Can you outline some of the cases for us and why you think it hasn't been so widely reported?
I think partly because the victims have been largely older women. And also, I think we have a culture of disbelief when it comes to sexual violence, sexual crimes and harassment against women. In hospital settings, it's been found that sexual harassment amongst females, the victims being female staff, the perpetrators being male staff, as well as patients who are residing in the hospital, is endemic. And yet the culture for whistleblowers, for those nurses, doctors, other members of staff that wish to speak out, has not been friendly, has not been conducive with open justice. We've seen nurses, for example, be disciplined or even lose their jobs for trying to speak out against senior members of staff. But the story is horrific. We're talking about a case of one woman who died. Her family assumed it was from a stroke that she'd had recently, although she was getting better. And then on further scrutiny under the post-mortem examination was found that she had massive internal injuries and that she had very most certainly been seriously sexually assaulted whilst incapable of raising the alarm. And then there's been harassment and sexual misdemeanours that have gone across the hospital, as well as, of course, nurses that had been taking drugs as though there were sweets in a candy store for their own personal use, and also drugging patients, older women, again, stroke survivors, because they had been deemed to be a bit of a pain, really, to look after. So I do think yes, this hospital is absolutely the hospital of horrors, but we also need to look at whether or not there are similar, even if less dramatic, examples that are happening across the NHS.
Yes, and Julie, that brings me on to the question I'm desperate to ask you here, and I don't want to frame this in a negative way, but we look at the demographics of some of the people that have committed the offence, and we look at things like the grooming gang scandal. There's been many things like this brushed under the rug, and even, Keir Starmer back in his day when he was director of prosecutions, the CPS, had said that there was this serious failure to address some of these issues due to things like people being scared about saying this is potentially racist, caught being branded certain things. Could we be staring down the barrel of another grooming gang scandal?
Not from my perspective, no, and not from all of the evidence I've seen that it's unrelated to this. For example, in the 40-odd years I've been campaigning against sexual violence towards women and girls, I've seen this be brushed under the carpet, whatever the demographic. We looked at Jimmy Savile with the BBC and that cover-up. I could go on and name the big scandals such as those endemic to the Catholic Church, where there was a blind eye approach to it. So I don't think that is the problem across the NHS with sexual violence towards women. I campaigned in the 1980s, along with other feminists, to have single-sex wards because sexual harassment of women by patients as well as male doctors and other members of staff was a big problem. So I think that we can't just look at this as ethnicity of the perpetrators. Absolutely not. This is not one of those scandals from where I'm sitting.
And Julie, just very briefly, what improvements do you think need to be made for women to actually be safe in that very vulnerable position of being in hospital?
Well, first of all, we need to make sure that whistleblowers, potential whistleblowers, are protected, are encouraged to speak out. And I'm not talking about spurious, unfounded allegations because they don't like the look of a particular doctor or porter or whoever. But I mean, people that have got something serious to report, there should be scrutiny. And I also think it goes without question that women and girls in hospital settings should have single-sex care. They should have care from female doctors and clerical staff and everybody across the board.
Julie, we're going to have to leave it there. I'm really sorry, but thank you so much. They sound like very good improvements that need to be made. Julie Bindel, thank you very much.
Maggie Oldman, Chief Executive at Blackpool Teaching Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust, said, regrettably, our trust has let down our community, patients and staff in the past, and I'm sorry, and for that I am sorry. Our teams continue to support the remaining police investigation, our trust having cooperated fully throughout. Our focus now is on delivering the best possible care for the people we serve. Lancashire Constabulary say they are investigating corporate failings at the Stoke unit, Blackpool Hospital, and will provide an update when they can. Labour, of course, remain committed to improving the NHS.
That's all from us for now from Britain's Newsroom. Up next, we've got Good Afternoon Britain with Nana and Tom.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.